Hello everybody, it's another episode of Fishy Hours. Today we will be talking about the topic that is not the most pleasant one, but I think that we have to address it anyway. It's about aquatic worms that happen sometimes to be in your aquariums. I know this is not the most pleasant topic, and I know that so many fish keepers actually hate these worms. Their opinion towards them is very controversial. So this is the reason why we will right now get down to 4 cases of worms that sometimes appear in your aquarium and what to do with them and the reasons why they happen to be. Case number 1. Worms as a cycle. So when you set up a new aquarium, probably without the fish yet, maybe some shrimp, you notice that on the glass there are some tiny little 1 or 2 millimeter organisms looking like worms that dwell on your glass. These are aquatic worms, and most of the time they are harmless. It means they do not harm the fish, they do not harm plants, let alone. But so many people don't like how they look, and they look rather disturbing sometimes for the viewer and not very aesthetic, right? But this is the process of a cycle. After some time you will notice that they disappear or their number decrease a lot. This is because the cycle is established, there is a balance in your tank, fish are happy, probably they ate them a little bit, so the population of worms is reduced. So you are happy, fish happy, everything is good. Case number 2 is when these worms actually are the indicator of misbalance in your tank. For example, when you have ammonia spikes or many nitrates, and therefore it means that you have too much waste in your aquarium. Maybe you do not clean the gravel thoroughly, or maybe filtration is not working, or maybe your aquarium is overstocked, which can happen. So there are many worms that suddenly appear in your aquarium. It means that their numbers are increased because of the waste. They feed on this waste, and that's why they multiply and just are happy because you have excessive waste in your aquarium. So you should think about how to change that, and in order to change that you need to change filtration or maybe do frequent water changes, etc, etc. Case number 3. Worms as invaders. Sometimes when you buy the plants from the local fish keeper who grew the plants himself, he probably has this culture on your plants. And when you introduce them to your aquarium, they start multiplying and you have worms. When you buy something from Denali or Tropica, these plants are usually in vitro, which means that they are completely free of algae, of any parasites, but it's only about in vitro plants that are sold by these trusted brands, etc. But when you buy some local plants, there can be already worms on them, or maybe the worms' eggs that then are introduced to your tank, and you have a generation of worms living in it. Case number 4. When we talk about worms that are not harmful, because the previous cases we talked about non-harmful worms that do not impose any danger to your fish or yourself. Right now we will be talking about parasitic worms. These are internal parasites in fish and also planaria. So when you see them, especially in your aquarium, when there are some shrimp, you need to worry about that and get rid of them as soon as possible. You can use some medicine like albendazole, but in case with shrimp it's a little bit complicated because they are very susceptible to any medicines or chemicals in aquarium. So there are some specialized remedies for that purpose that you should look into if you have this problem. So you need to identify planaria, and I will show you how it looks, and it's bigger. My experience shows me that when there is no fish in aquarium, the chance of worms to multiply is much bigger because actually so many fish munch on these worms, they eat them. For example, antler guppies and guppies in general love eating these worms. So if you have some guppies in your tank, the chances of worms to multiply is probably very minimal, like almost to zero sometimes. The next question is whether to get rid of these aquatic worms or not. In case with non-parasitic worms, well, in my opinion, we need to get rid of them if we don't like how they look or if they spoil the view of your aquascape. So what I usually do to get rid of worms is I do frequent water changes. Sometimes I add some medicine like albendazole. It may be very helpful, but be careful if you have shrimp in your tank. I often changed 100% of water, but it should be a very cautious process. And sometimes I escape the tank, add everything new, but it's a drastic measure when there are too many worms, and it especially happens when the tank is too small, like 2.5 gallons or 3 gallons. The chances of misbalance are very high, and misbalance leads to worms, and that's why, you know, this measure is the last resort, if you will, and it happens often with small aquariums. So, well, the general conclusion here is if you don't like them, try to get rid of them. If they are caused by misbalance, try to amend this misbalance and create a proper cycle in your aquarium, because it's anyway necessary. And the third, if you have a parasitic worms in your aquariums, like I have already said, planaria or internal parasites, you need to deworm your fish and fight planaria if it is planaria, and as I have already said, there are some specialized medicine for that purpose. Well, that's it for today, and I hope that you will get rid of this problem if you have this problem, because it's rather sometimes, you know, unpleasant to have it, but any fish keeper can actually face up with it. Thank you very much for watching. Stay safe, stay tuned, and see you next time.